Goedemorgen allemaal en welkom bij dit webinar georganiseerd door VNG Realisatie. Wij gaan het vandaag hebben over het resultaat van een onderzoek wat we hebben uit laten voeren door IMEC, een onderzoeksorganisatie gelieerd aan de Universiteit van Brussel. Met ons is straks Marleen Komorowski van IMEC. Zij is de onderzoekster die voor ons het onderzoek heeft uitgevoerd. En voor u staat Koert Isik. Ik ben adviseur innovaties bij VNG Realisatie. En wij gaan samen dit webinar doen. Zoals u in de e-mail de uitnodiging heeft kunnen zien, zal het deels Engels zijn en deels Nederlands. U kunt opmerkingen in de chat plaatsen en dan zullen we daar later voor zover mogelijk op ingaan. Mochten we niet aan de opmerkingen zijn toegekomen, de opmerkingen worden allemaal geregistreerd en we zullen er dan op een later punt op terugkomen. Voor de goede orde, het webinar wordt opgenomen en zal evenals de presentatie achteraf beschikbaar worden gesteld, zodat u op een later tijdstip nog even rustig terug kan kijken. Want het zou bijvoorbeeld ook kunnen dat sommige slides zoveel informatie bevatten dat het misschien slecht leesbaar is. Wat ik zei, achteraf krijgt u de presentatie gewoon toegezonden, zodat u daar verder naar kan kijken. Ik zal de volgende punten met u behandelen. We hebben de volgende agenda opgesteld. Even kijken. De aanleiding waarom hebben wij dit onderzoek uit laten voeren. Vervolgens stappen we door naar een ontwikkeling in Nederland en Europa ook. Het Dutch Societal Innovation Hub. Vervolgens zal Marleen jullie verder meenemen in de resultaten die uit het onderzoek naar voren zijn gekomen. En vervolgens hebben we tijd om wat vragen te behandelen en discussie. Het is een webinar, dus wij zenden naar jullie. Maak vooral gebruik van de chat om opmerkingen, vragen, etc. te posten. Dan wordt het sowieso ook geregistreerd voor later. Marleen zal ook nog een call for action naar jullie uitzetten, maar goed, dat komen we vanzelf aan. Nou, allereerst de aanleiding voor het onderzoek. Bij VNG Realisatie hebben wij sinds vorig jaar de zogenaamde meervoudige innovatiestrategie. Die meervoudige innovatiestrategie bestaat uit een proces en een aantal bouwblokken om innovatie goed te ondersteunen. Een van die bouwblokken is het hebben van zogenaamde ontwikkellocaties door het land. De doelstelling daarvan is dus dat wij als VNG Realisatie ook meer bij gemeenten in de buurt innovatieplaatsen beschikbaar hebben, waar we samen met gemeenten, ook vanuit een multiple helix gedachte, mogelijk onderwijsinstellingen en bedrijfsleven werken aan innovatieve oplossingen voor maatschappelijke vraagstukken. Dus dat is enerzijds vanuit de strategie. Anderzijds is er vorig jaar naar buiten gekomen dat vanuit de Europese Commissie een ambitie is om door heel Europa te komen tot 240 zogenaamde European Digital Innovation Hubs. En dat zijn ook innovatie-ecosystemen door heel Europa op verschillende onderwerpen. En wat is er nou feitelijk nieuw? Dat is niet dat die ecosystemen er zijn, want heel veel zijn er al. Maar dat er ook onderlinge verbondenheid is en dat er synergie behaald kan worden. Nou, die ambitie is er dus vanuit Europa. En die ambitie hebben wij doorgekopieerd naar het initiatief wat we afgelopen zomer dus bij de Europese Commissie hebben ingediend. Samen met feitelijk de Rijksoverheid als sponsor en het IPO als mede-penvoerder. En dat initiatief hebben wij gedoopt tot het zogenaamde Dutch Societal Innovation Hub. Nou, wat is dat Dutch Societal Innovation Hub? Daar hebben wij een strategie voor bedacht, waarbij we eigenlijk zeggen, we zien heel Nederland als één groot ecosysteem. Dus we willen los van alle losse componenten. Dus we willen kijken van hoe kunnen we nou die ecosystemen samen laten werken aan maatschappelijke oplossingen voor 17 miljoen inwoners van Nederland, maar mogelijk ook, als je kijkt naar het schalen van kansrijke oplossingen, naar 300 miljoen inwoners in Europa. Nou, we willen eigenlijk gebruik maken van bestaande innovatie-ecosystemen die maatschappelijke uitdagingen centraal hebben in het DNA. Nou, die gemeenten zijn weer belangrijk omdat die door het hele land een goede spreiding geven en daarmee meehelpen aan überhaupt ook de verbinding te brengen met de burgers van de oplossingen, maar ook het samen nadenken over hoe moet dat er dan uitzien. En we gaan samen met IPO en de Rijksoverheid dus werken aan de opschaling van die oplossingen. Nou, we zijn nu druk bezig om die Europese call ook daadwerkelijk invulling te geven. Afgelopen zomer was er een voorselectieronde waarbij er meerdere ecosystemen hun plan hebben gepitcht. Voor Nederland zou er 1 publieke innovatiehub komen. Nou, dat zijn wij uiteindelijk geworden. En dan zijn er ook voor jullie informatie een 5-tal digitale innovatiehub in de smart industry hoek. Dus dan moet je denken aan de maakindustrie of in de regio Eindhoven heb je heel veel ook hardware, Philips, de ASML, et cetera. En met z'n allen gaan we richting Europa invulling geven aan die ambitie. Wat wij met ons DSIH willen bereiken is door het hebben van een aantal technologie-services willen we de ambitie invulling geven. Nou, het onderzoek is daarvoor van belang. We hebben Marleen dus gevraagd van, kan je uitzoeken welke innovatie-ecosystemen er binnen Nederland zijn. Daarbij hebben we ons expliciet niet gericht tot alleen publieke ecosystemen, maar zitten daar natuurlijk ook veel ecosystemen in de private sector bij. Nou, ik geef nu het woord aan Marleen en zij gaat jullie meenemen, wel in de Engelse taal, in de resultaten van het onderzoek. Vragen mogen jullie dus in het Engels of in het Nederlands stellen en dan zullen we daar straks naar kijken. Marleen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Kurt. My name is Marleen Komorowski. I work for Emic Smit at the VUB in Brussels. I am the lead researcher on this study, and I wanted to thank everyone who joined here today and also who took the time to fill in the survey that I created. I have worked on this project since the mid last year, so I'm excited to show you some first results. So these are the preliminary results, so we are still collecting through the survey more data from ecosystems, which will all be then published in a bigger report via the VNG and BZK by hopefully March or latest April. So first I would like to talk to you about the research background and goals. So the aim of the study is to map the innovation ecosystem landscape in the Netherlands, and more specifically to identify the strengths and barriers and support for growth and upscaling. So my aim is really to have the data from the survey plus desk research and other insights that I will gather also through this webinar today, but also other workshops in order to create a framework that can be used by any kind of innovation ecosystem to grow and to further upscale. The definition of an innovation ecosystem, which also was part of the survey, is that an innovation ecosystem is here defined as the structures that are formed between actors that pursue innovation as one of their core objectives, often to improve people's lives. An innovation ecosystem is the evolving set of actors, activities, relations, and artifacts that are important for innovative performance of individuals and organizations. So these kind of ecosystems which are included in this study and you are representing here are a variety of systems such as cluster initiatives, funding programs, incubators, labs, technology parks, projects, partnerships, communities, associations, any localized connected group of individuals, firms, governmental and academic organizations. These can cover numerous activities such as experimentation, testing, upscaling, improving skills, and so on, for individuals and organizations, from businesses, knowledge institutions, public organizations, citizens, entrepreneurs, and more. Collected a little bit of data around the background of the digital strength in the Netherlands, because this is highly relevant for this research. Some of the findings really showed me that the Netherlands has gained increasing recognition for its digital strength. For a rather small country, the Netherlands are gradually transforming into an internationally recognized hub for technological innovations. While it shows one of the highest population densities in Europe with 70 million inhabitants, it is still one of the smallest countries in Europe, comparable to a global city more, having almost the same population size as Istanbul with 15 million, or with even just double the population size of London, for example. So based on the European Digital Forum's Startup Nation scoreboard, the Netherlands actually ranks #1 for startup business climate in Europe. Considering the size of the Netherlands and the number of inhabitants, that's quite impressive. The Silicon Valley Research Agency Startup Genome in 2020 ranked Amsterdam in 3rd place as a startup city in Europe. And the Netherlands have really above average digital and innovation scores in Europe. In the Netherlands, 1 in 3 companies is highly digitized, compared to only 1 in 5 companies across all of the EU, making the Dutch economy one of the highest digitized in Europe. And this is just following after the Scandinavian countries. There are more than 3,000 firms generating and applying advanced technologies as defined by the EU, located in the Netherlands. This means that the Netherlands are showing the highest concentration of innovative firms in the EU. Only Germany, France, and Spain have more advanced terms, but in real numbers, not if it comes to concentration. And the Netherlands are leading in Europe in terms of emerging technology development, like blockchain and so on, and application considering the size of the country. So, for example, 12%, which is 352 million of investment of all kind into Europe, are made into the blockchain market in the Netherlands. In the Global Innovation Index, the World Intellectual Property Organization ranks the Netherlands the 5th worldwide, thereby leading other European markets such as Germany, the UK, and the Nordics, among others. And Amsterdam and Rotterdam and Eindhoven have been identified as world-leading innovation clusters by the World Intellectual Property Organization, so not just in Europe. In terms of integration of digital technologies, the Netherlands count as one of the top performers in Europe, right after Ireland, Finland, and Belgium, and is leading in Europe in terms of digital transformation enablers. So in this graphic, you can see how the Netherlands ranks the highest in some of these digital strength indicators in the EU. And the Netherlands are in the top 4 of the overall digital economy and society index score, scoring really as one of the highest. The Netherlands here marked on in red, and the EU average here in the middle. And finally, also if it comes to digital innovation hubs as defined by the EU, out of the 581 digital innovation hubs in Europe mapped by the Smart Specialization platform of the European Commission, 42 are located in the Netherlands. That's 7%. And if we compare this to the overall population in the Netherlands, which is 3.8% of the European member states. So a really high concentration also if it comes to these kind of hubs. However, what I found looking at the data and from the survey and also on this overall desk research, while there are considerable and above average local strength for digitization in the Netherlands, we have found that the landscape of innovation ecosystems is fragmented, possibly acting in silos. So innovation and digital strategies are not only followed on national, but also on local and regional level, having local authorities of regions and cities investing and supporting innovation ecosystem growth. In the Netherlands, not only public, but also private investment and development of innovation ecosystems takes place, with local operating companies driving digitization, for example, Shell, Philips, and IBM. Also, a large number of universities take the lead in the Netherlands in developing innovation ecosystems, like Delft University of Technology, Eindhoven, and so on. Additional players in local innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands include diverse new science parks, like the Leiden Bioscience Park, and incubation and acceleration programs like Twente Novel T, Rotterdam Startup Foundation, and more. So we have seen that there is a wide variety of different kind of innovation ecosystems, which could be quite fragmented, but also with a lot of overlapping activities. So I wanted to briefly present the study design and methodology for the survey. So the idea was to create a framework, first of all, that helps us to join the dots on the map of innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands towards collaboration and a common network. And we especially wanted to focus in the survey and the questions we asked you to fill out in the survey around what are the differences and the similarities. So where are the innovation ecosystems located? How are they organized? What innovation areas are they focusing on? How many companies and members are part of them? And where is the potential overlap and for collaboration opportunities? So the idea is to build on these similarities and differences that we could find in order to create more links and nodes in the future. The overall framework is based on a typology of innovation ecosystem, which identifies 9 criteria to define an innovation ecosystem type. This includes predefined criteria like the city size, the place and location of the innovation ecosystem, the number of actors involved and that the innovation ecosystem has access to, the type of actors involved, and the expertise and industry sectors that are located there. Then more, and the development stage of the innovation ecosystem, of course. So is it emerging, if it's already there, longer established, or if it's upscaling, for example. And we have undefined criteria that are more driven by the innovation ecosystem itself. This includes the scale of operation, the central entity, how is it organized, is it unorganized, the leading and initiating actors, and the actions and goals taken by the innovation ecosystem. These criteria are not exhaustive, so the focus is on creating rather a list that is able to represent the most influential factors that have an impact on the functioning of the innovation ecosystem and how to manage it. What is also important here is that we use this framework, which I used to create the survey and ask you the question, to later on create an identifying mapping tool for innovation ecosystems that then helps, after identifying, to create the next steps in order to grow and scale up. So the information and the overall study design is built on insights from literature and the mapping of the innovation ecosystems. First, we did do desk research. We actually identified, based on this desk research, we expected to have between 100 and 200 innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands. We then did the survey based on these first insights and finding these innovation ecosystems online. And we identified more than 400 unique experts which received the survey. The survey was online from September to November, and overall we received 97 unique responses, so a response rate of around 25%. And in total, we managed to identify 92 innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands, which are now represented in the data that I'm gonna show. So let's go to the findings. I hope part of the most interesting presentation part of today's webinar. So I know some of the written text is very small, but like Kurt said, you will get the presentation afterwards and the full report with all of the data and insights also later when it is published. So what I wanted to highlight here is that we can find in each of the 12 provinces in the Netherlands innovation ecosystems. The majority are located in cities like Utrecht, Den Haag, Groningen, and Eindhoven, showing still quite well regional balance of innovation activities in the Netherlands, because we were quite surprised that also in very small cities and different areas in the Netherlands, you could find innovation ecosystem activities. If it comes to the number of actors, the 93 or 92 innovation ecosystems surveyed cover a large number of Dutch firms, including larger companies, SMEs, and freelancers. Based on the survey, we estimate that the innovation ecosystems cover around 20,000 businesses in the Netherlands, which cover 80 to 90% of innovative enterprises in the country. So really the majority of companies which are innovative are part of the innovation ecosystem network in the Netherlands, considering, of course, also overlap of members. So based on this data, there are in total 1.6 million businesses, 370,000 which are included in the top sectors by the CBS, which is agri-food, chemie, creative industries, energy, life science, transport, and so on. 3,000 firms generating and applying advanced technologies as defined by the EU, and 12,000 innovators. So based on this, like I said, and the survey findings, 20,000 are members of innovation ecosystems. And out of these, around 13,000 are firms, so not including HEI, public institutions, and freelancers. So considering there is this possible overlap, we really estimate that the majority of all firms are part of innovation ecosystems networks. So what type of actors are involved in innovation ecosystems? The majority of actors involved are SMEs. So that's the first pie chart. These are more than 11,000. And we found that there is a large range of different actors involved. This include universities, this include colleges, these include a number of labs and technology parks. We found a lot of municipalities involved. There's of course overlap in this data. So one municipality or one university might be involved in several innovation ecosystems. The finance sector is involved, like banks, venture capital, and business angels, and other different actors like the press, formal, informal networks, trade organizations, and so on. A large number of the ecosystems we have surveyed have overlapping focus on certain sector activities. This include healthcare, which almost 20% of the 92 innovation ecosystems cover in some kind. Digitization, which is much more general. So people stated they are active in the IT sector, in data and software and so on. Energy and manufacturing was an often mentioned sector they are involved in. And we find that because of this big overlap of different activities, there could be really great possibilities for synergies in the future. So if it comes to the focus, not only the sectors were mentioned, but a lot of the survey respondents described how they are specifically tackling, for example, social and innovation, social issues and innovation. And the core goals, the circular economy was a very often mentioned concept that these innovation ecosystems focus on, or environmental sustainability, or sustainability also in a business sense quite often, in which services and activities are being made. And if it comes to innovation and the technology focus, around a third of surveyed innovation ecosystems indicated that they focus on specifically AI. This is also in the Digital Innovation Hub network that Kurt described in the EU, a focus technology to be developed. Other areas are big data, data science, sensors, robotics, 3D printing. So a lot of the survey respondents really said that their goal is to advance AI development or bring AI into the local companies. And with 33% of all of the innovation ecosystems mentioning that this is one of the core competencies and focus they are doing. And if it comes to the development stage, which I also found interesting, there were a couple of innovation ecosystems fairly new. Some of them haven't even started, but already filled out the survey. But more than half of the surveyed innovation ecosystem have declared to be growing or emerging. So like I said, fairly new. There were also quite a few established ones, so around 30%, or transformational, which I saw more of a after established the next stage of in the change, so there are a little bit less of them, but still we see that a lot of the innovation ecosystems are trying to reach new scales and scopes in their development phase. And the majority of surveyed ecosystems works on a regional level. Quite few focus on the city itself. Then we had quite a few also looking at national or international level. So really a regional scope, which also comes quite often through which kind of organization is leading or has initiated the innovation ecosystems, which then focus on the regional level because it was from a regional agency, finance, for example. But really there are wide varieties of the scale where the innovation ecosystem focused on. And around 1 out of 4 innovation ecosystems are led through a partnership. So quite a few have an established organizational form. Others are rather organized around business clusters or accelerators and incubators. And central entities include, for example, projects. So they're project finance, which quite often leads to troubles if it comes to sustainability because projects have a limited time frame. They are also built around funding programs, often by public authorities, and specific infrastructures like co-working spaces, labs, and technology parks. So we see here as well, it's a wide variety. The business cluster was more the area where I then grouped activities that are very different. When an innovation ecosystem said they are a network, they are a collaboration, for example. So if it was a little bit different, I all put it under the umbrella term business cluster. So we also here we find a very wide variety of different forms of how they were established and how they are established. And we have found that a majority of innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands are initiated by governmental efforts, including municipalities and regional and city level authorities. So there are also a few which have been established by industry efforts, by firms themselves, or by leading individuals. But still the majority is public driven in the Netherlands. And finally, if it comes to actions and goals, the most we asked to rank from extremely important to not at all important, from a scale from 1 to 5. What goals and actions in their innovation, how important the goals and actions of the innovation ecosystem are. The most important objective for local innovation ecosystems is to enable innovation and technology with an average of 4.6, so extremely important, and to strengthen collaboration with an average of 4.5. And the least important objectives include the provision of education and training with just an average of 3.8 and industry growth with an average of 3.9. So some final thoughts on what this data tells us and how we want to move forward with it. Well, we have found clear differences and similarities among the innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands, which are complementary, but also create possibilities for collaboration in the future. And also really the idea of avoiding overlap of activities, to not have to do the work double in a sense. Innovation ecosystems cover the majority of innovative firms in the Netherlands, which is, I think, quite an impressive number with 80 to 90%. They are distributed throughout the whole country. They create expertise and have common goals around AI, digitization, and societal issues, to name just a few. They mostly focus on enabling innovation and collaboration, and we have found similarities, but also considerable differences, which could lead to complementary strength or overlapping activities, as I just mentioned. Finally, I asked the survey respondents also to, like in their own opinion, to evaluate how successful the innovation ecosystems are. And only 6% indicated that the innovation ecosystem is extremely successful, so the highest ranked. And around 25% indicated that the ecosystem has only moderate success in achieving its goal. Overall, it was very positive, but still. In the next step of the study, we want to be able to give you a toolkit which allows innovation ecosystems to grow and become more successful in their activities in a step-by-step approach. And I'm currently working on this framework, which includes you to assess and identify your own ecosystem, to compare and map your ecosystem next to other ecosystems, and to close the gaps, to find really opportunities for collaboration, create sustainable activities, and grow the ecosystem. And for this, I have two follow-up questions. How can we make innovation ecosystems in the Netherlands more sustainable and efficient? And what are the barriers and opportunities for different innovation ecosystems? So that was the insights. And I'm happy to go over to the discussion and questions section we've put together. So I see there are already a couple of questions.
Thank you, Marleen. There was a question from René. What was it? Yeah. Oh, is the innovation activity mapping based on the 92 innovation ecosystem that responded?
The mapping of the activities is exactly on that, but there were overlap. So they could have done several activities. So the percentages you saw on this slide are off because the overall population of activities is larger than 92.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Victor. Thank you, Victor, for asking the question in English. How can we value strengthen collaboration as most important, but still very siloed?
The idea I had for the report and for the research was to break these silos, because I had quite often the response also in the survey that you have to compete with each other. Innovation ecosystems have to compete with each other in the Netherlands, and I don't believe that this is necessary. So by breaking up these silos, the competition between the activities of innovation ecosystems can be more complementary than competitive. So this would then overall strengthen the collaboration and the network in the Netherlands and overall. So this is my vision for the Netherlands, but maybe the VNG has also an idea in how they want to move forward with the Digital Innovation Hub project on that.
I see the next question is from Astrid. I think I know Astrid. Is een link samenwerking tussen dit traject en de NL-AI-coalitie? Nou, dit traject is natuurlijk een beetje breed geformuleerd. Dit onderzoek hebben wij gedaan om inzicht te geven in waar de ecosystemen in Nederland zich bevinden, wat ze doen, wat de kenmerken daarvan zijn. En deze inzichten gaan we gebruiken voor het traject wat ik eerder schetste, het Dutch Societal Innovation Hub, waarbij we bestaande ecosystemen met elkaar willen verbinden om maatschappelijke uitdagingen op te pakken. Nou, jouw vraag gaat er om van, ja, is de NL-AI-coalitie daarin verbonden? En het antwoord daarop is inderdaad positief. Omdat in de doelstelling van de Europese call ook is als strategisch doel ook gezegd van, ja, wij vinden AI heel erg belangrijk. Het valt binnen het Digital Europe programma. En daarom willen we ook zeg maar die financiële middelen beschikbaar stellen om te helpen om deze innovatiehubs op te zetten, om daarmee digitale transformatie ook dichterbij MKB's gaat het er enerzijds om, maar ook overheden te brengen. Dus de NL-AI-coalitie is ook betrokken, juist omdat AI heel belangrijk is. Stephanie, is there an entity which could take over the coordination of all ecosystems to enhance collaboration and success? Well, I don't know if you are Dutch or English, so I'm going to respond in English as well. Well, there, of course, is not an entity who is taking over. We are not China or name any other country with a strong government. But with this Dutch Societal Innovation Hub, we aim to connect ecosystems who have societal activities as their in their DNA, as their focal point. Next to that, there are other digital innovation hubs who are proposed by the Netherlands to the European Committee, who are focused on industries, smart industry solutions. So you have the smart industry North, smart industry East, smart industry North Holland and Utrecht, and the smart industry hub Southwest Netherlands, and the smart industry hub South Netherlands. So there are several overkoepelend nu wordt het moeilijk. Samenwerkingen in which ecosystem can link to each other, working on specific solutions.
And I believe that VNG aims to also take this a little bit over as the role of creating this project, right? That's the overall goal of the project with the youth, so they have the capacities to take up a little bit this role of a coordinator of different innovation ecosystems.
Yeah, but we are mainly focused on the public sector, of course. But we have connections with these smart industry hubs, so we can maybe come to synergetical results.
Yeah.
Joram, what is the role of regional innovation agencies in creating silos? Marleen, is that something you can answer?
I can give my thoughts on that. It's not something I necessarily have covered in the survey per se, but this will be part of the follow-up research and the call for action I'm going to put out after the discussion today. And my idea of what the role of these agencies is that this quite often can take up being the reason for silos. Yes, indeed. Because of this project-driven nature of innovation agencies, giving out money on short-term basis, the overall impact of different things that have been happening around agencies is quite often not possible to link. And I myself have worked on innovation projects financed by regional innovation agencies. I have seen projects being financed that are then disappearing after some time because the agency shifts its focuses quite often. So the problem is that you need long-lasting and sustainable activities and solutions, and how these kind of agencies often work is more short-term financing and funding. So this creates an imbalance because you rather need a long-term strategy. But if you have changing government, the possibilities for the agency to invest into innovation ecosystem changes all the time. So there is a kind of issue. I don't see a real solution to it because these agencies also work within the framework and the system that they have. But if we would raise a kind of lobbying voice and a common voice of innovation ecosystems towards the government to have a sustainable and long-lasting strategy behind how they fund and invest and create innovation ecosystem, I think it could have an impact to loosen these silos that exist at the moment.
Thank you, Marleen. I have a question for Nick. It's also for you. Did you find in your research why the success ratio for achieving ambitions is not very high? And he has some suggestions. Is there a lack of implementation and upscaling strategies, or is it maybe because of insufficient commitment or funds?
Indeed, I asked in the one of the last questions in the survey was around what are the opportunities and for growth, and this quite often was also used by respondents to state what are the problems, but I haven't collected real in-depth data. So in my call for action now, this is exactly what I want to explore in more detail. I have already some ideas based on the survey results, but I feel like this is highly important, and that's a really good question, Nick. So based on what I already have in data, it's quite often a problem of financial sustainability. That's what I already mentioned in the previous answer to the previous question. So because of this uncertainty and not being able to plan for quite a long for innovation ecosystems, they also cannot establish the right strategies to have an impact on innovation, because they also have to live from knowing at what points will there be more funding. And then upscaling, so in a sense of being able to do more activities and be able to have a bigger impact, is also something very difficult, because if they have maybe a financial sustainable situation, the innovation ecosystems, then they are lacking the possibility to expand and to grow. So a lot of innovation ecosystems have troubles finding additional financial and income streams to then in turn finance the activities they would like to upscale towards too. But it's not also only about finances and income, it's also quite often about problems of bringing the right people towards the table. So it's an issue of creating the collaboration and partnerships that are necessary. That was another finding from the survey. So I would say these are the two biggest issues which stop upscaling and having a bigger impact and more successful, to be more successful. But I hope my follow-up research will even more detailed give answers to this question.
Okay, I have a next question from Rian. This one is for me. Is there any relation with the initiative Versterken van Ecosystemen from Ministry of Economic Affairs and Education, Culture and Science? No, there wasn't. Because we put out the survey last autumn, they came on the line with us for, hey, we did a research just recently, what are you researching? Well, they have, of course, a main focus for strengthening the Netherlands in an economical way, and we focus on societal solutions. But as a result of this survey, we got in contact with each other, and now we have a meeting in what is regular every 3-4 weeks to at least exchange our activities on this subject. So we are going to strengthen each other. Next question from Henno. Most ecosystems have a regional focus, but are placed in specific cities on the map. Now it seems there are barely any ecosystems in some parts of the Netherlands, for instance, North Holland. Henno, yes, this I found this too remarkable, but this is also the reason why we made this webinar, so we can share our interim results, and this can be a trigger for innovation ecosystems who say, hey, we are not on the list. We are happy to welcome them in our survey. So the survey is still open now, I think, Marlene, now because of the webinar.
Yes. Yeah, it will also stay open for a couple more weeks.
Yeah, so if you know some ecosystems who maybe are not on the map, please invite them, because we want to be as complete as possible.
Yeah.
Next question. Sorry.
Can I just briefly say, I made a Google map with all of the innovation ecosystems that had the website address as well. So it's public data put on Google Maps, so you can find each other and you can more detailed see there in which cities and which places the innovation ecosystems are. And we're going to share it after the webinar in the follow-up email as well, so you can explore it a little bit more in detail. If you then see suddenly, well, where is the one in Asse or Deventer and so on, maybe you can forward the survey and the findings to the people you know who are running innovation ecosystems in the places we haven't identified yet.
Thank you. I have another question from Renee. It's for you as well, Marlene. The least important objective, provision of education. As a prof, what is your reflection on that outcome, especially while we like to emphasize the importance on the triple helix model?
So the triple helix model, what I found is that it's not that universities and higher education institutions are not part of innovation ecosystems. They are in most of the innovation ecosystems somehow integrated. But I think it's fine to say if the innovation ecosystems themselves might want to leave the education and training to the HEIs and don't put it as their own objectives. But on the other hand, what I know from my activities in innovation ecosystems, how to make companies be more innovative, is this training and education idea is quite important, because some companies don't even know how to go from their ideas to an innovation in an R&D process. So I am a little bit ambivalent about that result. It's not in the survey that it's not as an objective important, but it's the least among all of the different options that I gave in the survey. But I feel still that this is, it was a surprise for me on the one hand. But I feel like I want to explore a little bit more into detail in how far innovation ecosystems don't see this as an important objective, and what this might also mean for them for upscaling. Because if you want to have an impact on innovation, giving people the skills and the right training and education to do so is quite an important point. So I'm interested also in exploring this more in the follow-up research.
Next question is from Freek. Regional innovation systems are mostly started from local / regional governmental initiative. This will always imply a competitive scene, as every region / ecosystem wants to excel in a certain niche. Can we change this? And should we change it? Competition is also a method for selection.
Yes, it's true. Competition is something in, for example, the idea of the competitive advantages of Porter, where you have the competition and that creates more efficiency, that creates better innovation ecosystems if you have to compete, if innovation ecosystems would have to compete with one another. However, I found it not the problem that innovation ecosystems might compete, but rather that if it comes to governmental organizations, it's quite a hype thing at the moment. So every city wants to be a smart city. So they pour in a little bit money and see what happens. Or every city wants to be the next innovation something, so they pour in money. And it's always this short-term thinking about impact of this investment and creating these networks and creating ecosystems that doesn't really have an impact, and they are disappearing after a short time. So I always advocate for a long-term strategy, and not just for the period of election, but having to implement something that really gives sustainability to innovation ecosystems, because only then it's also fair competition and you can have a long-term impact with what you're trying to do. So it's a problem on the one hand, it's also not a problem. It's also very good that a lot of government and from different governmental levels are interested in investing into innovation. But what I find is especially the lack of knowledge about each other. So that the city Appledore doesn't know what Amersfoort is doing. And that there needs to be more exchange between cities of what they're doing, because then you can find complementarities between each other and help each other out, and having not to do the work double and waste investment. So it's more just about these network and exchanging, and at least knowing what the other ones are doing. If you're not even aware of it, you cannot also find how you can improve things in the future.
Okay, next question is from Johan. It's in Dutch. Zijn er ook positieve uitkomsten gevonden van deze versnippering? In het land natuurlijk. In het bedrijfsleven zien we dat bijvoorbeeld start-ups die stand-alone iets nieuws ontwikkelen, deze kunnen namelijk ook heel erg succesvol zijn. Terwijl innovatie binnen grote bedrijven soms heel moeilijk tot stand komen. Zeker in early stage van innovatie.
If it comes to startups, what you need least is investment, because you can be a very successful team and with skills and a good idea. If you don't have investment, it's almost impossible to create something that has can go to the market. In the end, yes, you don't need to necessarily be part of an innovation network, but the data would show that 80 to 90% of innovative firms in the Netherlands are part of one. I think also shows that there is a need for the activities of innovation ecosystems, bringing people together and collaborating. And other research that I did on how to be creative, how to be innovative, it always was the complementarity of skills that you need in order to create something new. Yes, it can be done alone, but you need at least a diverse skill set in your startup, in your company. And how do you find these people again? How can you find the people with the right skills? And there the ecosystem comes into place again. And it doesn't necessarily have to be organized like an organization which takes care of the innovation ecosystems, but you at least should be part of an ecosystem that is unorganized, that allows you to find these skills that you need for innovation. That's basically what I have found in my research so far. So this standalone company doing it by themselves, it's almost always impossible. Does it need an organized innovation ecosystem? That could be questioned. But if it's organized, it's always easier to access it and to benefit from it.
Next question is from Rolf. Has the study also provided insights of the financing of ecosystem in terms of stability and also volume?
Well, that's a very, very good question, because that's exactly one of the questions in my follow-up study, because I want to explore that in more detail, in how far people are reliant on public money, on money coming from agencies and public authorities, how far there are revenue streams that are coming from other sources, and in how far these are sustainable. So I hope most of you gonna go into my follow-up survey and answer it's just 3 short questions, so I can answer this question properly in my report.
Yeah, so this is a question to you all participants. Please contribute to extra survey, which will be in the email. I have another question from Martin. EU funding investment is mostly based on defined projects and anticipated results of that, and not on innovation hubs ecosystems. Is there a possibility to change the direct financing to innovative ecosystem / field labs? Well, this is exactly what this call from the European Committee is about. In the new Digital Europe program, which runs from 2021 to 2027, the European Digital Innovation Hubs are introduced. So this is new to the European Union. So it's also new to us. And one of the main goals of contributing to these ecosystem innovation hubs is to have test before invest facilities at some ecosystems, just because this provides some possibilities to give structured possibilities for local innovations. So field labs are part of that. So we are almost running out of time. I see Nienke with some insights. Dankjewel, Nienke. Can you share the map of the link of the Google Map? Ja, die krijgen jullie ook in de afsluitende e-mail. Krijgen jullie die meegezonden. Kan je ook inzoomen en dan kan je ook controleren of je mogelijk iets mist waarvan je denkt van, hé, maar dat is wel interessant om op te nemen. Dat had je al gezegd. Dankjewel.
I already shared it right now, so you can have a look. But just as a disclaimer, it's not updated with all of the additional innovation ecosystems we have found yet, which I wanted to do later today. So if you refresh this site later or use the link later today, you will have the full overview.
Yeah, and we will always put it in the email. Because there are some people who have finished the webinar, so we will share it in the presentation.
Yes.
The final report, we expect it in March or April. If you check the box while registering for this webinar, you want to be updated with this report, we will inform you about it. And the call for action. This is what Marleen was just talking about. She had some, maybe you can say it yourself.
Happy to. This link again will be shared in the follow-up email. It's really short. It's 3 questions. So I hope most of you will take the time to share your ideas as experts with me. It doesn't have to be for a specific ecosystem, but I'm really want to figure out what are the barriers and problems innovation ecosystems face and how you have overcome it. So lessons learned, I want to create a kind of best practices and really share among the innovation ecosystems what they have learned when they face problems and wanted to grow. It's about the income streams, the second question. So what are the sources and maybe list for me how you make this income. So also best practices to share with the other innovation ecosystems. And the last question is about COVID and the impact on ecosystems, because I feel like this is a hot topic, of course. And I want to integrate some thoughts on that in my report as well.
Oké, nou dan komen we nu aan de afsluiting. In het scherm zien jullie onze contactgegevens. Mochten jullie nog additionele vragen hebben, voel je vrij om ons te contacten. Zoals beloofd zullen wij achteraf jullie nog een en ander aan informatie toesturen. Bij deze ook nogmaals het verzoek, mocht je nog ecosystemen kennen die niet op de kaart staan, voeg ze graag toe. Dan wou ik bij deze Marleen bedanken voor het toelichten van de verkregen resultaten. En ook collega Henri voor het vlekkeloos laten verlopen van dit webinar. Bedankt voor uw aandacht.